Hello, everybody. This is Fred Kranz representing the Bellwether League Foundation today, and we are going to have a fireside chat with George Godfrey from Baptist Health of South Florida. Before we start, I want to tell you a little bit about the Bellwether League. The Bellwether League was founded 18 years ago uh, by Jamie Kowalski and Rick Dana Barlow and a few other people to recognize the lifelong accomplishments of key people in what then was probably still called materials management. Hadn't not quite transitioned to supply chain yet. And the establishment of the Bellwether League was a Hall of Fame award for people who had demonstrated excellence over their careers. Uh, Over the years, various other categories of awards have been added. First, the Future Famers Award, which is an award that highlights people at the beginning part of their career that have made significant early and immediate contributions to the supply chain. And we hope someday will become bellwethers. And the second part, the Ammer Award, named after Dean Ammer, who was the first inductee in the Bellwether League Hall of Fame, are for people in the middle of their career. So the idea is to, number one, reward people who have had excellent long-term careers. Number two, encourage the people that are at the beginning and middle of their careers. And then with things like this Bellwether League Fireside Chat to provide some educational material out there so that people who are doing their work day to day can take this and use it and apply to problems that they are dealing with themselves. So that being said, I am proud to welcome my brother from a different mother from the same, we share the same alma mater, and I don't mean Florida State or the University of Miami. I mean Baptist Health of South Florida, George Godfrey. George, welcome to our podcast.
Good to be here, Fred. Thanks for having me again. Hey, how cool would it be to be the first person that gets all three categories of the Bellwether uh,
I can't
distinctions?
I can't answer that. I,
I, yeah, I don't think my career I could answer that either, but
I can only
that's something
imagine that, you know.
something for someone to strive for.
Yep. Um, you know, George, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and you know what your role is at Baptist Health, and then we're going to talk today about your creative use of an existing tool to solve a recurring and irritating problem that every supply chain faces. But first off, tell us about yourself, George.
Well, I'm a proud father of three and happily married to a beautiful wife. Have been in Miami for 35 plus years, 25 years of healthcare manufacturing experience prior to coming to Baptist Health, mainly focused on diagnostic point of use and laboratory instrumentation. Once I came to Baptist, came as a supply chain executive, and then subsequently went and helped build our cancer institute and worked in oncology for 4 or 5 years, and then have come back to supply chain. I'm now the current chief supply chain officer here at Baptist Health.
Great. And I know that you went to that school. You went to the school in Tallahassee, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
because the school in Tallahassee, Florida State University, other than lots of national football championships, also had a materials management program specialty that it was far better than University of Miami. That's where I received my education, Fred.
I will say that I don't know if you did took math there at Florida State, but three is fewer than five. Okay, three is less than five.
All right.
Okay, George. So just had to say that. For you folks out there that don't know, I started my career after the military as a nursing assistant at Baptist Hospital in Miami, which is the sort of the backbone of the genesis of Baptist Health of South Florida. So between George and I, we have been representing Baptist Health of South Florida since 1969, which is pretty long time to be associated with one place. George, you know, one of the things that we talked about before is that you guys are inundated with trying to find ways to improve operations these days. And historically, the quick and fast thing that we were always given directives to is A, get better pricing, B, reduce inventory, and C, get rid of people if you could. And those things long ago stopped working all that well because we've done the best we can in many of those areas. You found some problems that you had, which was invoice resolution, and you developed a unique approach um, to dealing with that. Could you tell us a little bit about the background for that and how you approached it?
Well, it starts out with your example. I mean, we put a lot of effort into contracting and to make sure that we don't have expired contracts, make sure we have the best contracts we can possibly get. And we get those in place. And in several cases, we have suppliers that send us invoices with list pricing that doesn't have the appropriate price, due to price activation issues or just oversight or mistakes, whatever the case might be. And so the frustration came in that we were putting all this effort at the front end to prevent match exceptions, but also to have the best price possible. And at the end of the day, we were spending a lot of resources on trying to resolve these exceptions. Had high degree of leakage, price leakage that was really, you didn't have visibility on how the match exceptions were being resolved. And from that standpoint, I was very concerned, even on the compliance. Are we just changing the PO price to make the match exceptions go away? We knew that the problem was multiple millions and millions of dollars. You could just do a simple audit of the pending match exceptions that need to be resolved to calculate the type of value that's going through this process. And it was just incredibly inefficient and incredibly non-strategic. And we knew that we needed to solve for this because it occurs every year. And if we could come up with a solution, we knew that we could leverage that solution for multiple years ahead.
To give the folks out there some idea of the magnitude of the problem, how many unresolved invoices would you have at a given time?
So going back 6 or 7 years ago, we would average, and we were very good at working them, we would average 6 to 7,000 unresolved match exceptions at any given time. That, and we were probably as good or better than most of the peers the size of Baptist.
Okay, so don't give away the ending. Okay, so we're starting with an N of 6 or 7 thousand, and as I understand the story, you would wake up at night thinking about this and thinking about all the tools that you might be able to command to apply to it. And what did you end up thinking would be a good way to approach this?
We looked at multiple ways of approaching it. But after looking at various technologies, really landed on CRM technology, customer relationship management. I like to rename it supplier relationship management. But with that tool, with that technology, what it allows you to do, it allows you to have structured workflows. It allows you to have automated workflows, and it allows you to have communication. Those elements really complement the ERP systems. If you look at, ERP systems, at best, a lot of them are sending people to supplier portals, which is a clunky method of communication. This had a direct bidirectional means of communicating, not like a robot where I'm just sending you a message. I'm sending you a message thread and you can interact. You can send it back to me with a question and we can go back and forth. So that's the technology we ended up using as a platform to develop our application.
So you have this idea that this platform might work. And then the next thing that you have to understand, we get down to people, process, and technology. So the process, in order to make the CRM adjust to solving the problem, you have to understand the process in infinite detail. Is that correct?
You do, and what we wanted to do is we didn't want to have a side system. The ERP is a system of truth, needed to say the system of truth. So we always needed to to remain locked to ERP data and use ERP data to guide us on what action we needed to take. And the process and what you're getting at is we knew that we would have match exceptions. I'm just going to use this as the use case. We have match exceptions in ERP. The next step of that is writing code to determine why did that match exception occur, but more importantly, who needs to do what with that match exception. A lot of ERP systems don't go through that diagnosis well enough to really determine what call to action needs to happen. And so we didn't want to, for thousands of match exceptions, have someone individually each match exceptions researching, why did this happen? Who needs to do what? Now that's the way we used to do it, but we wrote special code to do that for us that can take the data, evaluate the data, and then determine what action needs to happen next.
And with this process, you were able to actually identify iterative steps along the way that needed to be done and assign responsibility to individuals to make sure those steps were taken. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, through this process, we started out with like 14 reason codes of why we would have a match exceptions. I think it's now grown to 18. And then based upon those 18 reason codes, duplicate invoices or quantity invoices greater than quantity received, all types of reasons why this match exceptions exist. Then it assigns a responsible person, but more importantly, it assigns a call to action. And for the 18 reason codes that we have 18 calls of actions that are uniquely defined, and they're very clear. And so the data, a email goes out to the person that needs to receive it, internal or external. Let's just use a supplier for an example. It goes to the supplier, and I'll use the price error code as the example. It gives the supplier detailed data from ERP. It tells them what contract we have activated. It tells them what item, tells them what invoice, it tells them what date we received it. It gives them the PO number. It gives them all the data elements clearly with no typos. It's being fed from the computer in an email that says your price was equal to X, our records show Y, what actions do you want to take to resolve it? And then it has 3 action buttons that makes it really easy for the supplier to respond. It can say short pay, and which we can talk about why we are able to short pay now later, but then it says credit memo, and then it has the third button, Baptist price is incorrect. And depending on which button the supplier hits, it then takes it to the workflow which you're describing that either moves the process for resolution or it moves it to the next stage of an additional conversation or exchange of information. And all that occurs automatically. So what I just described on a daily basis, every morning our system evaluates what match exceptions are open. It evaluates the status of those match exceptions, if they're open or closed, like did some close that night, and if so, they auto close the cases. If new ones opened, it auto creates the case, it auto diagnoses the problem, it auto sends the call to action, and then throughout the process, it auto escalates if someone's not responding.
And each of the call to action things are assigns work tasks to appropriate people. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so those people, they show up at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. They fire up their computer, and they'll actually sort of get a listing of things that they need to take care of. Is that correct?
That is the beauty of it is a lot of the system is doing it for them, so they don't have to do it. They just get to watch the status of it, so they understand how many actions are pending by supplier and what type of actions are pending by supplier. So they know, okay, I have 30 match exceptions with this supplier. I might have 4 contracts waiting feedback. There's different elements that we're using this type of technology to communicate with suppliers, but it really makes workload management very simple versus operating in an Outlook email environment that you're trying to organize all this communication. That the system is organizing the communication for you. It's able to be sorted by different date ranges and certainly by status. And it clearly tells you the cases that are pending your status, that you need to do something. It's crystal clear. So as a supplier moves from, they get an email that says this is action, and the supplier takes the action and now sends it back to Baptist, it goes to one of my teams as response management, and it says, George, you have 5 cases that are pending response management, meaning pending some that you need to do something about that.
Well, now we're into an interesting thing. Now you're going to get Fred Kranz's 50-year-old opinion here from supply chain. Uh, these are things that nobody likes to mess with. Okay, so back in my time, a lot of people would just ignore those things for as long as they could, without too much fear of being followed up with on a regular basis. Your approach has greatly cut that down, has it not?
Oh, this approach yeah, has eliminated that. So there's a couple of things. So one of the beauties of tying it to the ERP system, we have the whole hierarchy from our HR system. So as we send emails to internal departments for them to take action, and they do not take action, we have an auto escalation feature that sends an email, let's just say to a lab director at one of our hospitals that we ran out of funding on a PO and we need them to process a requisition for additional funding for a standing order. So we send that email as a standard email that's being sent, and we don't receive feedback. I think we have it set right now at 7 days. A follow-up email is automatically generated to that same lab director. Another 7 days go by, and we still haven't received anything. A second escalation occurs, and it goes to the lab director plus their boss. And then it goes through a 4-step escalation, including within supply chain. So we're escalating it within operations, but at the same time, we're escalating it in supply chain. So at some point, I get escalations to issues that are not being resolved. And the reason for that, the ability not to resolve an issue and just let it linger only creates more issues. And so whenever we have a clear call to action that action needs to take place, driving for a quick resolution always benefits the organization, always benefits whoever's involved with it, and it makes it more efficient versus people just letting it linger and using the technology to make that escalation process easy and not expensive, where someone's constantly calling or constantly having to do manual emails. This is all computer generated, leveraging technology. It makes the cost of escalating much lower, but what happens over time, the amount of escalations we do at Baptist have gone to very little. Departments, our internal clinical departments know that supply chain is not going away. And by knowing that we're going to continue to come back and you can't just delete the email and let it go to someplace else, it helps us to resolve the issue, but more importantly, gives us credibility. Our supply chain team's credibility now, we're viewed that we're on the ball. It's not some black hole in supply chain. Whether we're chasing down contract renewal, because that's an automated process that we use this technology, or doing a match exception, the team internally and externally, they get to see that we're there and we're constantly taking action.
Yeah, a couple things. Number one, the process is not meant to be punitive, but it's meant
Right.
to ensure that the process continues to advance as it needs to be. And my second comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes you have to get involved because the people that would normally try to resolve the problem just can't do it themselves without having to have you go talk with a vendor or someone yourself. Is that correct?
Well, there's lots of reasons for me to get involved. One, yes, I have to do it because sometimes I need to get involved and the vendor needs to hear from me. What we found is especially as a lot of people have great pride in what they do, and they can run into these roadblocks, and we would ask, hey, how can I help? And they wouldn't speak up. And so I would maybe have a new member of staff working a match exception, and they've been working it for 30 days and not making any progress. And what I want is, hey, let us help. So that's the reason we started to escalate it, whether within management, so we would be aware, and I could go to Susie and say, Susie, let me step in, let me help. The other thing is, this solving problems is everyone's responsibilities. I can't just say this is a buyer's job and the vice president can't get dirty. Okay, everyone, I have to be there. It's a team event. It's a team exercise, and they have to have my full backing and full support in order to really put the guardrails on this, because if not, what we saw years ago, we would have match exceptions, Fred, that were multi-years old. Okay, and a match exception is easy. Someone's right, someone's wrong. and if you have one that's multiple years old, someone's not making a decision. And it's just residing with someone that can't make the decision or won't make the decision. And you have to bring it to a decision maker to get resolution.
So we talked about how big the pile was when you began. A couple questions. Number one, how many resources did you have to add to develop this solution?
None. We didn't add any resources.
That's an important thing. So you made do with what you already had. And go ahead.
I'll give you a story. Well, we did fail. And if you're going to be innovative, you have to be willing to fail. But if you're going to fail, you have to fail fast. We came out, I said, hey, this CRM technology, this is the way we need to go. And I looked around, what's available. We had ServiceNow, we had an Oracle product, and we had a few Salesforce licenses in marketing. And someone told me the Oracle product that we have is free. We own it. And I said, and the other two, I didn't have licenses. I said, free is better than spending money. And so we said, let's build this thing on Oracle. And I shouldn't use their name, but I did. And we hired a programmer and spent tens of thousands of dollars on our first revision 1 of this application for invoice match exceptions. And when we went, and I've told my whole team for probably about 3 months, this is going to be the best thing since Tableau. This is going to be better than BI tools. This technology is going to take us to the next level. And about a week before we turn it on, my lead developer comes to me and goes, George, you're going to hate this thing. I go, what do you mean? He goes, it's clunky. The users are going to hate it. It does what you want, but it's not intuitive. It's going to take a high level of training. And sure enough, they were right. We turned it on, and within a week, I was apologizing to my team, and I was telling them, hey, please use it so I can get feedback of what you like about it, what you don't like about it, and we're going to throw it away, and we will pick a platform that will be much better from a user-friendly standpoint, be professional, and it will allow us to have more functionality. And that's what we did. We ended up partnering with Salesforce, but our initial innovation failed, and then we regrouped and we developed this custom application that now just works magic. It's highly, highly automated, highly structured, and we've been using it for over 5 years.
Well, that sort of leads me to a couple other questions. Number one is, did you just do this on your own, or did you sell it to your C-suite first that you were going to do it? What was the sort of the genesis of that?
I sold it to our CFO first. Prior to that, we had a lot of credibility. We were very innovative using business intelligence technologies, especially Tableau, of developing reports and then distributing that information. We're within Baptist Health, we're really strong at analytics and trying to use those analytics to drive great outcomes. And so our CFO had seen that, and so we had a good reputation going into it. And it was sort of one of these trust me's. I said, this technology is going to allow us to solve for a problem that the ERP system can't do, and for a problem that we've had for many, many years. And by doing so, we can't even quantify the savings at this point because of the way the data within the ERP, either the PO price has changed or the invoice price has changed. So historically, you lose a lot of data. By having what we do now with these case structures, we captured both those data points and can go back and quantify all kinds of matrices that deal with supplier performance and financial performance.
Well, but this sort of the question behind everything I've talked about is, suppose I'm in a small IDN somewhere in the country and I hear this and I go, oh man, I want to do this myself. I've got to get somebody to give me permission to go forward to do it, right?
Right.
And the failure I've seen from going to conferences and presentations is some joker will be on the stage with a process that he worked on for 10 years and revised and got to work, or she worked on, and someone will see it and say, we got to do this right now. Well, first off, do you have the ability to do it? That's a good question. But secondly, you have to have support from senior leadership. And you don't get support from senior leadership overnight. You work for one of the greatest, most continuously well-led healthcare systems in this country. So you had to have built trust from the C-suite, so that they trusted you before you went forward. And I would ask you, how did you find C-suite as being um, as being recognized when you came to Baptist, and what did you do since you've been there to continue to build your reputation of being worth their effort? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm blessed. And Fred, you know the culture at Baptist and the leadership team that we have at Baptist. When I came to Baptist, the CEO was Brian Keeley, who served at that role for 30 plus years. And when I got promoted to Chief Supply Chain Officer, I got a simple handwritten note from Brian, and it said, "Be bold." Um, and, and growing up in sports and with brothers, being bold was like, oh, I can do that. But it was just to have that type of support day one. I remember on a Sunday, right when COVID was starting, he calls me up at the house, it's 7 a.m. because he was always up at 4 a.m. and says, "George, now's not the time to save money." And he goes, you got to protect all of our clinicians, and you need to do whatever you need to do, and you don't need to ask me for permission. You take care of it. And moves like that. And now fast forward, we have Bo Bollinger. He's the same type of leader. He is one that empowers people and expects a lot out of people. But with that expectation, that empowerment is just very rewarding. So yes, fortunately, I have a great team in supply chain. We've done a lot of really nice things within Baptist. Have gained a lot of confidence from the leaders within Baptist. But it's a team sport, so we have good leadership, but it funnels all the way down from top to bottom, having those role models, and all of us at Baptist strive to do things in an outstanding way. It's starting with patient care, and it just goes all the way through the organization.
Yep. And my point is this: that the organizations with the greatest supply chain operations have the greatest supply chain leaders, and the greatest supply chain leaders get that way over time by building excellent relationships with the C-suite. It doesn't happen overnight.
I,
Um,
I will go back to your example of the person sitting in the seminar. I think clarity for people, in this case, it was a clear problem to solve. What's the problem we're trying to solve? And invoice match exceptions is a huge problem. And organizations struggle with how to size that problem, struggle for how to quantify what would be the benefits of solving for that problem. But they all recognize it's a huge problem. And and once you start diving in, okay, I have a solution for this problem. I can do this technology, I can implement this application. And when I do so, what does it solve? What are the benefits? And from a supplier scorecarding benefit, from a compliance benefit, from a leakage benefit, from a simple, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that we now get just changing the ERP tolerance levels of, instead of just saying, okay, Matt, if it's within $50, let it go. And we're like, no, we don't need to do that, because our way of deploying a solution to correct it is pennies. It doesn't cost us anything to tell the vendor that they charged us the wrong price. So why are we going to give them $50 extra? There's early payment discounts. We're well over six figures on early payment discounts. Why? Because we're under control on invoice match exceptions. That's where I think people, as they think about projects and innovation, as they think about what they're doing, they need to define what problem they're solving, but also all these different benefits that come with it. If you solve the problem, can they quantify those? Can they have a vision of those? Not just the labor savings and the stress savings that they have on their staff, but there's so many other intangibles benefits.
well, two more things before we go. Number one, we know what your starting numbers were, and you can review those again. What is the situation on open unresolved invoices look like now at Baptist Health of South Florida?
Today's one of the first days I didn't look, but I tell you, yesterday we had 438 pending invoice match exceptions. This is fascinating. And over the 438, the oldest was 98 days old. 200 and over 200 were less than 1 week old. So
Wow.
yeah, and here's what's staggering. Uh, our average days to resolve a match exception for the last 12 months for all match exceptions that were open and closed has been 9 days at Baptist Health. And in that time, we've closed close to 35,000 match exceptions. So the problem, even though we're very low from a percent standpoint, percent of match exceptions to POs or percent match exceptions to lines, the speed in which they're being resolved is 9 days. It used to be when we couldn't even measure it, Fred. It was so bad. And then what I see when we started measuring, we were over 60 days, which is basically industry standard. And by turning on the technology and being able to resolve issues, automate the resolution, and do so with very little manual input, getting to 9 days really has benefited the organization. So
It has. So now that you've been successful in this arena, what areas are you looking at applying the same approach to in other areas of the supply chain?
well, we are applying the same technology for anything that we have. It goes back to the guiding principles. The where we need a standard workflow, where we need to automate, and where we need to communicate. And so with that, we still have ERP, but we're doing all of our contract renewals using this type of approach. We take the contract data, we bring it into Health Chain, our application, and we start that negotiation process. We do it for back order management. We take the back orders coming in that come in through whether they're being acknowledged through GHX or different means, and we take that data from ERP and we run it through a diagnosis engine. We say, do we care about this back order? Hey, if we have lots of inventory, we don't care about it. If it's for a patient procedure that's going to occur at one of our ORs this week, we care deeply about it. And so I'll use that example all the way through. Okay, we know that we have this back order. We know that this department ordered it. We know we have to communicate. Let's automate the communication to the department. Hey, this is what's going on with the item. Let's also automate the communication with that particular supplier. So we're using it in those type of examples, and it's become much more strategic than just transactional.
Well, that's great. Well, George, as always, it's a great pleasure to talk to you. I think you have given folks a perspective that they can, start to think about some of the problems they're trying to solve and realize that they may have access to technologies within their organization that if they just look at the problem a different way and think creatively and constructively, they might be able to squeeze some more juice out of areas that you think have pretty much dried up. And I appreciate your taking time to talk with us.
No, pleasure always, Fred. Pleasure to be here. I will add to that. I do think that there's a role for big technology, like whether it's BI or CRM on top of ERP. I think a lot of organizations think that they've made this big investment in this ERP system and it does everything. I don't think that that's the case. I really don't want to motivate people to go to Excel. I'm not suggesting that. But when you have core technologies, especially with all that's going on with the AI infrastructure that's going on within, whether it's in CRM or within the ERP, that's where the industry is going to be moving over the next 10 years. And having automated communication is going to be very important.
Yeah, and I think to add to what you just said, the one thing that you always have to remember too is technology is only technology. It's the successful implementation of these solutions still and always will depend on the impact, influence, knowledge, creativity, and ability to interact collaboratively of human beings in the process.
100%. Well
So
said, Fred.
George, thanks for joining us on the Bellwether League's Fireside Chat. Um, and I hope to see you soon. I'm going to be going down to Florida in a couple weeks at a meeting, but it's in Orlando, so I won't make it down there. But we'll get together one of these days, buddy. It's good to have you on, and thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day.
All right. Thank you, Fred. Have a great
Yep.
day.
Take care, George. Thank you.